The Ain't No Fang podcast. From Arizona Sports, Ain't No Fang.
Welcome into Ain't No Fang, Arizona Sports Diamondbacks podcast. I'm Alex Weiner, joined by Steve Zinsmeister, the Diamondbacks pre- and post-game radio host. And Steve, the Diamondbacks this weekend not only swept the St. Louis Cardinals in 3 games to start their, second half, quote unquote, slate out of the All-Star break, but they crushed the Cardinals coming out of the break. And, at first asking you on, it was like, all right, we're 100 games into the season. Let's go over, kind of take stock where we're at. The trade deadline is in 10 days, all that good stuff. But with the way that the Diamondbacks played this weekend, we really got to focus on what we saw and what we can look forward to. So there was a lot to like. Kind of first going over it again, 22-7 was the run differential for this weekend, which is the best run differential the Diamondbacks have had in a series all season. It's the best since they played the Nationals last July, and they only racked up the run differential during that series because they won a game like 17-0 or something like that. This is the first time they've swept the Cardinals since 2007. And to give you kind of some context of who the starting pitchers were at that point, it was Brandon Webb, Micah Owings, and Doug Davis. Those are the 3 pitchers for the Diamondbacks the last time that they swept the St. Louis Cardinals, which is pretty incredible as well. A lot to like at Chase Field this weekend. They got off to really quick starts. They outscored the Cardinals 16-1 in the first 3 innings of the games. Really good starting pitching. We'll go over what the Diamondbacks did in the rotation, but they reshuffled a little bit, and they got 3 quality starts out of their starting pitchers. Corbin Carroll, can't say enough, 3 triples, and then Eugenio Suarez was the star of the show with 4 home runs. So when you look back at what the Diamondbacks were able to do this weekend at Chase, what kind of stands out? What comes up first?
Yeah, it's the fact that they were able to build early leads in pretty much all 3 of those games, especially the first 2 where you're out by such significant margins. I mean, they were up 9-0 in the second game in this series before you even got to the 5th inning. And in talking with Torey Lovullo a little bit about that going into the series finale and just what that does to alleviate some of the pressure, not just on the pitchers, but also too on the defense, and just kind of give you an easier path to victory. That was huge in pretty much all 3 games. I know the 3rd game got a little bit closer than the first 2, but for the most part, all 3 of those games felt kind of similar in those ways. They had a lot of the same elements: scoring early, starting pitchers giving you really solid outings, and then the bullpen was pretty reliable as well. You're right. When you look back, there's 4 series this season that the Diamondbacks have swept. This probably, I think, makes the best case as their best series throughout the entire season. I mean, they swept Miami, but Miami at that time was not the Miami they are even right now. So I wouldn't say that was the toughest opponent. Seattle, they swept Seattle. That was a great series. And then Atlanta as well. But I think when you look back at the context of where they are right now, and with St. Louis right above them in the wild card race, you mentioned the run differential is also the best. I just think with all that being said and where they are, and knowing that they have 9 or so 10 days to figure out what they're going to do at the trade deadline, with all that in mind, this has to be the big feather in the cap for the Diamondbacks throughout the course of this season.
I would agree with that. And to your point about the 3rd game, they won it 5-3, but there were really only a couple moments in that game where the Cardinals had a legitimate chance to really get back into it. The 5th inning and then the 9th inning against DeSclafani, but he was able to escape it. Some really good defense this series as well. I want to point out Alec Thomas has made a couple of amazing catches, particularly on Friday night, but he also, setting a tone. It can be a lot of different moments in a game that sets a certain tone. Obviously Corbin Carroll hitting leadoff triples in 2 of them. But Alec Thomas making a sliding catch to end the first inning of Sunday's game and straining a runner, I thought that was a huge moment for them to really get off and get lift off in the first inning. To your point about this being the best series, I would tend to agree. You're right. Here are the run differentials from their other sweeps. So against Miami, it was 21-8. You're right. That was a different team. That was a different Diamondbacks team as well. I mean, that was the last series they had AJ Puck and Justin Martinez in the back end of that bullpen. Against Atlanta, that was really exciting because of the comeback that they had in that final game, which makes a case for like the craziest game that they've played all season when they were down 6 in the 9th inning and came back and won it. Seattle, they had that weird first game where they were up by 4 runs. Justin Martinez gets hurt. All of a sudden the Mariners come back. Josh Naylor hits a walk-off grand slam. It was a good series, but it kind of started off on like a good win, but like, what's going on now? And then now they have this one against St. Louis. I also wrote down they won 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee. Milwaukee hadn't gotten hot yet. They won 2 out of 3 against the Padres, which was good, especially because they came back against Robert Suarez in the 9th inning then. But yeah, I feel like it's got to be this Cardinals series because everything you mentioned, it's the context of it all. It's these guys know that they've been in trade rumors a lot of the guys have been in trade rumors for the last however long because they didn't finish the first half very well. They should have won a series in San Diego. They won 2 of the first 3 games and they settled for a split. They go to Anaheim. Torey Lovullo says, I want to win all 3 of these games. And then they lose the first 2. It's not the way that they wanted to send a message to the front office about like where they are, where they're going. But this was kind of the counterbalance to that. But now the question is, can they keep it going? Because sustained success has been a little bit evasive for them this season.
Yeah, and to your point about, each of those series that you mentioned had its own dramatic touch points, whereas not to say there was no drama the last 3 days, but they handled the Cardinals pretty consistently. I mean, they never trailed in the entire series. And so if they can continue the offense the way that they've had it over the last 3 or 4 games, then yeah, sure, the Diamondbacks could easily, put together 2 or 3 wins here against the Houston Astros. Maybe I shouldn't say easily. They are still one of the better teams in the American League for sure. So it's an interesting challenge. And then, we'll see if they take care of business with Pittsburgh, and then, Detroit is a whole nother animal. Maybe we'll have to talk about that again before we get to it. But yeah, no, this team is fully self-aware of where they're at right now with the deadline looming, with the number of games back they are. I mean, they've got to be doing a lot of calculus in the front office right now, trying to figure out what they want to do. And, you look at the scenario right now, you're back to 500, which of course, as you know, is not where they want to be, but it's kind of a benchmark that you have to hit along the way to contending. And so for them, it's great that they're back there, but they're definitely trying to not be satisfied with where they're at right now.
Yes, absolutely. Kind of playoff odds, you could take it for a grain of salt, but just kind of looking at them the last week or so, there have been some noticeable changes with Fangraphs. They're now up to 20.2%. It's not where you want to be, but it's certainly better than sub 10%, which is where they were before this series. Pacoda has them at 18%. Baseball Reference, which is based on the last 100 games, has them a little bit lower at 16%, but it's kind of more in the not impossible, but still improbable. They have a lot of work to do. Let's go over that Astros series. I had that for later, but we could do that now because it is a really interesting matchup. The Astros, as you mentioned, it's a good team. They're 57-42. They lead the American League West, and they have a decent lead 4 games up on the Seattle Mariners. They've just lost 3 straight series, including one to Seattle over the weekend. So it's not like they're playing their best. And it's a banged up ball club right now. If you're going to catch them, you never want to say now is the right time to catch whatever team. Now seems like a decent time to catch them because Jeremy Pena, who was an all-star, is out. Yordan Alvarez is still working back from injury. They just put Isaac Paredes on the injured list. So that's 3 major pieces of the lineup that are down, and it's a lineup now that looks quite a bit top-heavy with Jose Altuve having a good year, Cam Smith, who they got back in the Kyle Tucker trade, having a good year. But after that, it gets a little bit thin. And, that includes Christian Walker, who's going to make his big return to Chase Field this week, which will be, exciting for fans to see him back there. But it hasn't had the smoothest of first seasons in Houston either. What are you looking for in this Houston series in particular? Obviously, the offense keeping that going. They're going to get Ketel Marte back. That's obviously a big deal. And we haven't mentioned the fact that he didn't even play in those games where they got off to those great starts. Zach Gallen and Eduardo Rodriguez are starting things out. What's kind of key to you for them getting off to a good start here against Houston?
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? I mean, to your point about where Houston is at right now, they've lost 7 of their last 9 games. So I know that when there's an all-star break in between, it's not a perfect apples to apples, I guess. But yeah, they've been struggling here lately, as good as they are in the standings. And, you're right, they're a little depleted. So now might be the best time for the Diamondbacks to be facing this team. I think the number one thing that I'm looking forward to is just today to jump on the starting pitcher, who is a left-handed rookie. The Diamondbacks were the best team in baseball baseball against lefties last year. This year hasn't been exactly the same story. You mentioned Ketel Marte, who's going to be back today as the designated hitter after missing a couple days on the restricted list. He has not been the same Ketel Marte against lefties this year. He's been fine, but fine is kind of, below the bar that he sets for himself as a right-handed hitter. So I'd love to see Ketel jump on the left-handed starter. They've got some other guys. Grichuk should probably play a big role in this game in particular, maybe even Blaze Alexander if he continues to play second base. So I think jumping on Houston in game one is super important because you don't know what you're going to get the rest of the series. But I would love to see the offense continue to keep churning out runs at the rate that they currently are. Zach Gallen has a lot on his plate here today. He's going to presumably get 2 starts before the trade deadline. And so he's got a lot to prove. His first half was not what he wanted it to be. His ERA is just under 5.5. But he had some pretty good outings before the All-Star break. 2 of his last 3 have been really outstanding. And so if he can put together another one and start to show that he can do it consistently again, I think this team is going to take significant steps as we approach some really important series coming up.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say Gallen is probably my key to this. As you mentioned, he was really good against the Giants. He was really good against the Padres, not so much against the Angels. And today's start is kind of like, okay, are you still on that right track that you were on? And the Angels game was kind of a blip or an aberration? Or are we still kind of seeing the 2 good starts, 2 not so good starts, a decent start? Where are we with Gallen? Because he did look like vintage Zach Gallen for a couple of starts there. And just a few things went wrong in that Angels game that kind of ballooned his stats line a little bit. And then Eduardo Rodriguez, of course, to kind of keep that going, they reshuffled the rotation for the start of the, I always do the quote unquote second half because this is, we're at 100 games. But they got Brandon Pfaadt in there first, which worked out really well because he's pitching great in his last 2 starts. They got Ryan Nelson in there, who other than that Angels start, has been pitching terrifically for the last month and a half or so, really since that Red start, and that was a blip. And then Merrill Kelly, who's been their most, reliable starter all season, kind of bent but didn't break in a few moments against the Cardinals on Sunday. So that seemed to work to get them kind of pushed off of the All-Star break and in the right direction with the 3 guys who have been at least the most reliable of late. Now it's like, okay, can your 2 veteran guys who have had so much success throughout their careers but have not had the consistency this year continue that path that you're on, keep kind of a reeling in a sense of health, Houston offense down a little bit, and just allow the offense to continue to give you those leads because, Astros hit first today. And if the Diamondbacks go into the bottom of the first inning 0-0, get a couple of runs, then you're right back to what you were doing against the Cardinals. If it's, 2-0 Astros, and then, it changes the feeling and the rhythm of the game a little bit. So just getting Zach Gallen in there and on the right foot, I would say that that's probably my key there. For him personally, for sure, for the organization, that would be huge. So you're right. Colton Gordon will go for Houston tonight, rookie left-hander. Then they get Framber Valdez. Then they get another rookie. Potentially, they haven't announced their starter for Wednesday yet, but it appears like it's going to be a rookie. They have a good bullpen, so getting to them early, like you mentioned, I would think that that's a pretty big deal at this point.
Yeah, and again, if the first 2 starters are both left-handed, again, that was a strength last year, but it just hasn't been so far for the Diamondbacks. So it does change the equation a little bit because this team has been so good against right-handers. They jumped on Sonny Gray in a huge way in this past series. I was talking with Gino Suarez after that game, and he mentioned, when our offense is clicking, we can take down some of the better pitchers that we face. Framber Valdez is a real challenge, as you know, yep. And that's a really good left-hander, one of the better left-handers in the game of baseball. And so game 2 is certainly going to have its challenges. Erod on the mound. They'll probably look at some long relief behind him on Tuesday, which has been another trend also with the bullpen, which has been much better in the month of July, despite the fact that they have a bunch of dudes who are just not around because they're injured. But they've kind of gone to this different form of a bullpen where they're relying on guys like Anthony DeSclafani and Jake Woodford and John Curtis to pitch some long relief late in games, which has done 2 things for them. Number one, they've given them good innings, so they've been much better. Their ERA in the month of July is like 2.94, I think it is, which is ninth best in the game of baseball this month, as opposed to the first 3 months where it was up over 5 and one of the worst in Major League Baseball. But the other thing that it does, obviously, is it's keeping this bullpen, what they do have out there available to them, fresh each and every day. I mean, Kyle Backus got into a game the other day solely because he hadn't pitched in a few days, and they just wanted to get him out there. So good problems to have for the Diamondbacks bullpen as they get into a series where they're probably going to need a lot of those guys.
Yes, definitely. And that's a really good point too. And to that point, they've gotten some decent news for relievers lately as well. They didn't lose Shelby Miller for the year, like a lot of people had feared when he got a second opinion for a forearm strain or flexor strain. He's working his way back. He's already thrown a bullpen. Jalen Beeks has already thrown a bullpen. Ryan Thompson has started throwing. He's a little bit behind the other two guys, but it seems like, knock on wood, if all goes to plan, that they will have Beeks and Shelby Miller back and available, before too long. Like, you don't want to say it's coming on maybe sometime in the upcoming road trip. We'll see. You don't never know. But that is a big boost for a bullpen. And you're right. For now, they've kind of been piecing it together with these 3 inning saves that Anthony DeSclafani got yesterday and that Woodford almost got, but of course they wanted to throw Kyle Backus in there. Oh, well, that's okay. He'll maybe get another save at some point sometime soon. Let's talk a little bit about, because of the craziness of what we saw offensively this week, we have to spend a little time talking about Gino and Corbin, because what they're doing, and specifically Gino as one of the premier power hitters all season, but from where they were a year ago to where they are now, that's been talked about a lot. It is pretty astounding. And with Suarez, he now leads the National League in home runs. It was pretty funny because he took the lead with his first home run yesterday. Shohei then hit a homer against the Brewers to tie him back up, and then Gino went a yard again to retake the lead. So for now, Suarez has 35, Ohtani has 34. Suarez leads not only the National League, but Major League Baseball with 85 RBIs, which is also pretty astounding at this point. And, the graphic comes up every time, he does something. It's like home runs since the All-Star break last year, and it's Judge 1, Ohtani 2, and Suarez 3. Do your eyes just perk up whenever he comes up to the plate at this point? Because for me, it's like, all right, sometimes you're working on stuff, sometimes you're watching, but then when he comes up, you want to watch a little bit closer to kind of see what kind of groove that he's going to get on. Because when he is in the zone, I mean, it's unbelievable how small the ballpark looks.
Yeah, it's almost like an eerie feeling in a good way at Chase Field when Gino comes to the plate, because I do feel that it gets quieter when Gino comes up, because everyone knows that he can do damage in any at bat, particularly apparently in the first couple of innings. He seems to be really good at that the last few days. But yeah, no, I mean, what do we go to baseball games for? We go to see things that we've never seen done before. And right now, Gino is on pace to do some things that we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, as of right now, as of yesterday, I guess, after the game, he's on pace for about 57 home runs this season, which would tie the franchise record with Luis Gonzalez, a record that I don't know if any of us ever thought was going to get broken. He's also on pace for 137 RBIs, which would be solidly third in franchise history behind Gonzo and Matt Williams at 142. He's doing things that none of us expected, even though we knew how good he was. Our friend Jesse Friedman tweeted yesterday that in the last 162 games, he's hit 55 home runs. I mean, it's absurd what he's doing right now. And I asked Torey yesterday, Torey Lovello, the manager, because he's been around some great power hitters in his day. And I asked him, what is the comp here? Have you seen anything like this up close before? And he likened it to his former teammate, Ken Griffey Jr., who had over 600 of these things in his career and chased 60 a couple of different times in the mid to late 90s. And he compared it to that, where you go to the ballpark each and every day, it feels like he's going to hit one, if not multiple. And as crazy as that comparison sounds, you put the numbers side by side, and Gino right now is doing a lot of the same things. And so it's really remarkable, especially when you put it in context of all the rumors that are flying around. And, I read an article today that said there's a 90% chance that Gino Suarez gets traded. And I'm like, it still feels premature, even though we're a week plus away from the deadline. It just feels like maybe he took it personally that everyone's talking about trades leads or took it personally that he didn't get invited to the home run derby, because now he's holding a home run derby of his own each and every night at Chase Field.
What's so cool to watch about his home runs too, and once in a while he'll hit one to center, once in a while he'll hit one to right. He hit one to right the other day. When he just gets a hold of one, like, it immediately, like off the bat, it immediately. And you just want to see how high up it goes. One of them yesterday went up, I don't know how many rows that was. It went 425 feet. It was a bomb. And the other one, I was like, oh, that's gone. And it like hit the top of the wall and bounced into the bullpen. But you're like, I never quite doubted that was going to get over, because it's just a way that it looks. And maybe that's also part of the reason is because where the press box is, it's kind of like a little bit on the first base side. So you can kind of see the arc of the ball off of the bat from that angle really well. And so it's really fun to watch when he gets a hold of one, because it's like, how far is that thing going up? Because I know that's not going to stay in the ballpark. I mean, 6 multi-home run games already, which is pretty crazy. I mean, only Cal Raleigh has more, which, tells you also about how nuts Cal Raleigh's season has been, especially as a catcher over in the American League for the Seattle Mariners. But nobody else has 6. There's a handful of guys who have 5. But he's having a season unlike really anybody else in Major League Baseball. And it will be interesting to see what happens over the next 10 days. I think that this fan base would be kind of devastated if something were to happen where he's no longer on this team. But obviously they still kind of can write their own story with that, because they have this opportunity now that they started off the second half pretty well. Go out and you would lose 2 out of 3 to Houston. Maybe you're not feeling so hot, but you go out and you take care of business against Houston, take care of business against a Pirates team you should beat. Then you're kind of putting yourself in a little bit of a different conversation than you would if you kind of remain 500 throughout this entire thing. But back to Suarez and Carroll. Carroll, as I mentioned, 3 triples over the weekend. He's at 13 right now. His career high in the franchise record for a single season is 14. He's going to blow past that, it seems like. He might do it today if he hits 2 more. Then I also wanted to mention Geraldo Perdomo, because the fact that he's got 72 RBIs is pretty crazy. It leads all shortstops in Major League Baseball. It's top 10 in Major League Baseball. He's tied with PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong from the Cubs. And PCA didn't hit 9th for most of the season. I guess, for Carroll or for Perdomo, I'll let you kind of go wherever you want. Just what are you kind of noticing watching them come to the plate every single day?
Yeah, I guess let's start with Carroll, who has, like you said, 3 triples in his last, 2 games, and probably would have had a 4th if not for Blaze Alexander holding up at third base.
Carroll called it a non-issue after the game, but obviously the question was like, so what are you going to tell Blaze about getting in your way about getting a third triple? It's only happened 50 times, or 49 times. He would have been 50th that someone's hit 3 triples. So I pulled Carroll aside after the game yesterday and was interviewing him on the field. And I just simply said, man, I wish I could run like you. Like it's the most entertaining thing to watch. And I said, when you hit the ball, do you know off the bat that you're getting to third base, or are you reading the right field corner? Because I mean, he knows that right field corner, as wonky as it is, he knows it better than anybody because he spends all his time out there. I was like, so when do you know that you're getting to third? And he looks at me and he goes, man, I just run until they tell me to stop. And, he's a man of very few words, Corbin Carroll, but that kind of told me everything I needed to know. And I think he's probably the fastest, if not top, 3 fastest players in Major League Baseball. He has all of the records for, fastest times from home to third. Yeah. And so it's incredible. It really is. And I know that a lot of people have been asking me and probably asking you throughout the course of the season, like, why is Corbin Carroll not stealing bases anymore? It's because he's not at first base. He's at third base. I mean, I don't know. You can't steal the base all that often when you're standing at third already. So he's been remarkable. I talked with Tori yesterday about, usually as a coach, your eyes follow different things during a play than maybe the average viewer like you or me. The coaches tend to watch the ball and the fielder and keep an eye on where that's going on. And Tori admitted to me, he was like, listen, dude, you're right. When Corbin puts the ball in play, especially in a gap or in the corner, my eyes immediately go to Corbin because I just want to watch him run. And so it's one of the cooler things you can see at the ballpark. As for Perdomo,
I brought up the 70 plus RBI thing to Torrey as well. And he brought up the point that, yes, of course, he's getting more opportunities as he's moved up in the lineup to bring guys in. That's certainly true. But also, too, it's his ability to toggle back and forth between two different approaches at the plate. The one that we've always known that he had as the 9-hole hitter is easily setting up the top of the lineup by getting on base, drawing walks, seeing a lot of pitches. That's still a thing that he's doing. But I think he's able to now toggle to this other approach where he's got runners in scoring position. Okay, I just need to put the ball into the outfield, however that ends up happening. And he's done such a good job of that, I mean, if you compare him to any of the shortstops in Major League Baseball, statistically, he's in that upper echelon. He's in that top tier. And also, he leads this team in stolen bases. He's got 2 of those in the last couple of days. He's not the fastest player on the team, but he's one of the most savvy. And you put him and Dave McKay together, and it's like Perdomo is the most likely player on the team to reach first base. I'd say he's also probably the most likely player on the team to reach second base in any given at bat. And that's put him in a position to have some crazy numbers where he's got like 25 more RBIs than he's ever had in a season. And it's still July.
Yeah. He leads the league in sacrifice flies. He leads the league. He's got 9 of them. He leads the league in sacrifice flies. He's such a cool story, too, because the growth is very evident when you watch him every day, but the stats also tell he still walks at a very high clip. He's actually walking at a career high clip right now. He's striking out at a lower clip than he's ever struck out before. So all those like Perdomo isms, doesn't strike out a lot, walks a lot, all that is getting better. Well, at the same time, he's hitting the ball harder than he ever has, and he's slugging a lot more than he has in the past. So all of that combined with the opportunities that he's getting, to your point, has really created kind of this run-producing shortstop that you never would have had expected a couple of years ago based on kind of his hitting profile back in like 2022 when it was a real struggle for him to drive the baseball. And now it's becoming a lot more normalized. And again, I just found this on Corbin, to your point about he's never on first base, he's got 84 hits this year. 16 are doubles, 13 are triples, 21 are home runs. More than half of his hits are extra base hits. So again, it's also a different story for Corbin than what we saw a couple years ago when he hit 285 as a rookie with all those stolen bases. He's hitting for a lot more power now. He's driving the ball a lot more. He's striking out a little bit more, but he's hitting the ball harder when he hits it. It's just a different player profile. And so it is interesting to see some of this young core kind of develop into a little bit different player than they were when they came up as a 22, 23, 21-year-old or whatever. It'll be interesting to see that kind of growth with Gabby when he can get back and stay healthy because, you know, it's still unfortunate that he's on the 60-day IL, but he's, you know, part of that group and so is a few others. I think that's mostly what I've got for you. Just a couple of like superlatives at the end here because we are at the 100-game mark. So very rapid fire. Who's your MVP and who's your Cy Young of the team 100 games into this baseball season? And win of the year if you have one off the top of your head.
Okay, so let's start with MVP. Was that the first one?
MVP was the first one.
I'd probably go with Gino. There's been I think there are guys on this team who have had higher peaks maybe at any given moment. I mean, Corbin's first month of the season was amazing, but then he cooled down. Ketel missed a month of the season, but is still the best second baseman statistically in the game. But I think the engine that keeps this offense going has been Gino. He's consistent. He's available each and every day. He always plays. The defense might not be quite where it was a year ago, but he's still making great plays at third base and, of course, the home runs as we talked about. So I'll go Gino as my MVP.
I would agree with that. He and Perdomo have been the two mainstays for this lineup who have been consistent in terms of availability and productivity. And just, I think you can go with either Perdomo or Suarez. I think Ketel and Corbin also have really good cases for this. But Suarez, the power trip and the fact that, the guy's won National League Player of the Week 3 times and is probably going to be a 4th time, which is pretty incredible. I would say for him too. For Cy Young, I'm going to go with Merrill Kelly. In my opinion, I don't know. Do you have kind of a different take on that one?
No, I mean, Corbin Burns was quickly becoming the Corbin Burns that we know him to be before the injury, but that was so long ago at this point that it's not really a fair apples to apples comparison because he's missed so much time. Yeah, Merrill Kelly's been the most consistent arm. I will give a ton of credit to Ryan Nelson for what he's been able to do, considering the fact that they yo-yoed him between the bullpen and the starting rotation really throughout his entire career, but particularly early in the season. He was the the odd man out after spring training. He didn't take it personally. He went to the bullpen. Things didn't go super great. But then when they moved him to the rotation, he's been fantastic. And I think he might be their highest upside starting pitcher in terms of stuff. And you look at his four-seam fastball, which he throws like 70% of the time. Yeah. It's one of the best pitches in the game of baseball. So why not throw it 60 to 70% of the time? So I'll give him a lot of credit. But Merrill Kelly, the way he gets it done with the arsenal that he has and doing it with location rather than velocity, it's the antithesis of what you see across the rest of Major League Baseball. All the best guys throw 98, 99, 100. Merrill getting it done with 92 and a changeup that everybody envies.
That point about Nelly is going to be really important when you look at the team going into 2026 and 2027 as well. I mean, this is a guy who went from fighting for a rotation spot to this guy's going to be kind of a focal point of your rotation going into the next couple of years. At least that's the way that it looks like right now. All right, the craziest win of the year, craziest loss of the year. Craziest win, I'm going to go with the Braves. I know this is putting you on the spot a little bit. That was kind of the point. What kind of stands out to you? I'm going to go with the Braves win. Loss of the year, I'm going to go with the Wrigley Field disaster where they scored 10 runs in an inning and didn't win that game.
Okay. Yeah. So craziest win, just for the sake of being a little different, because I think that Braves win is probably it. The craziest win for me is the day that Justin Martinez gets 2 quick outs in the 9th and then blows his elbow. And they give up 4 runs. It's a tie game. It's demoralizing. And then they load the bases for Josh Naylor, who all he had to do was draw a walk, get a base hit, do literally any of the little stuff. And instead he hits a walk-off grand slam. I'll put that as one of my favorite wins of the year, despite obviously the situation it put him in with Justin Martinez. And then as for a loss, one of my favorite moments of the year, despite it coming in a loss, was the day Gino hit 4 home runs. I remember he had 3 and I was standing next to the dugout and I look over to my right and in the first row, there's a kid. He's probably 6 or 7 years old with his dad. And they're both Braves fans wearing Braves attire. And he looks up at his dad and I could barely make out what the kid said. He said, "I hope he hits another." And his dad says, "I do too." And I think everybody in the ballpark felt that way, whether they were a Diamondback fan or a Braves fan, even knowing that it might cost them the game, which it ultimately ended up not costing the Braves. But that might be the worst loss in terms of like, man, we had such a great moment for Gino. We held a press conference for Gino after the game, but still weren't able to pull it off. So that's kind of a bittersweet one for me.
That's a good one. That's a good. Only 19 of them ever, and like one of the few that they didn't win that game. Unbelievable.
I know.
A great weekend for the Diamondbacks against the Cardinals. They start a 3-game series against the Astros on Monday night at 6:40. Steve, you will be on the air at 6 o'clock to preview the upcoming matchup. Steve, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to chat about the first 100 games in this most recent stretch out of the break.
Always a pleasure, Alex. I'll see you out at the ballpark.
All right, sounds good. All right, thanks so much for everyone who watched and listened to Ain't No Fang on Arizona Sports. Keep it locked in on Arizona Sports for all things Diamondbacks as they continue to march toward the trade deadline.